Welcome back to the Donkey Vote podcast with Francis.
Tobias.
And George. These interviews will be focusing on the past careers of politicians before they entered parliament.
With a strong intention to our audience that anything is achievable no matter what you studied in university or college.
If you like this sort of content, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. Also, we are on YouTube and Spotify, so make sure you follow us on those platforms.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram as well to keep updated with the latest episodes and reels that we release.
Enjoy
the
the
interview.
Today we are joined by Andreanne Larouche from Shefford. So, Andreanne, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes, so just for our audience out there who may not know an entire lot about you and about your home riding of Shefford, could you give us a little brief description of both just before we get into the questions?
Okay, Shefford is a riding of 20 municipalities. One big city at the center, Granby, and all the rest, so the 19 others, are some rural municipalities, yeah.
Oh wow,
And
so
it's between Sherbrooke and Montreal, so it's south of the Quebec. South,
oh,
yeah, west of the Quebec.
okay, because I've spent a bit of time in Quebec in the past. I've got family who live in Lacolle near the border.
It's close. I'm like an hour from US border, an hour from Montreal, and an hour from Sherbrooke. I'm in the center of
Oh,
all
you're
this.
in the center of the whole of Quebec. Oh wow, that's quite cool as well. And yeah, and I spent some time went around like Saint-Jean and those sort of towns, specifically about 30, 40 minutes away from the border. So yeah, it's a great place. It's really, pretty rural, a lot of different sort of people there, and very French speaking as well. So it's quite a bit of a cultural shock to go there, especially from coming from Australia. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm
yeah.
not sure if I understand the question, but
Yes, no problem at all, MP La Roche. So I think we'll get straight into our questions then. So my first question to you is, how was your high school and university life? And do you have any memorable moments you'd like to share on the podcast?
yeah, my high school and college years were memorable, and I'm thinking in particular of my high school graduation trip to Greece and Italy, which
Oh,
really opened my eyes to the world. And then in Cégep, I took part in a parliamentary simulation at Quebec. And in university, I took part in a United Nations simulation session and interned as a journalist for the student radio station at the United Nations World Summit on the Information Society in Tunis.
And I guess that kind of helps you a lot with your political experience now, being involved in Canadian Parliament and representing your party and the riding of Shefford.
If I Since I'm representing my party, sorry, the sound is not very good. Since what?
Sorry, it's really, I guess that experience, being a part of, model UNs and that sort of thing in your high school years really did help you in becoming a parliamentarian
Yes.
and representing, your riding of Shefford.
If I'm talking more about my career prior to politics,
Yes,
that's the
yes.
question. Yes. After graduating from university, I worked as a political assistant for the federal government for 4 years,
Oh,
and then
wow.
spent a year in the office of a member of parliament in Quebec City. I then worked as a project manager for community groups, notably women, youth, and seniors. And I also worked on a social economy project with a youth hostel.
Mhm. That's very, very interesting. And going on to a bit of your party, so you are a member of the Bloc Québécois Nationalist Party. So for a lot of our Australian audience, they may have not heard of Bloc. So can you tell us a little bit about the party and what are some of the key ideologies of the Bloc?
Yeah, we believe that Quebec is a nation and that until the people of Quebec can make their own choice and decision, we must defend Quebec interest in Canada and the respect for the choice of competence. So that's what we hear. That's the way that the Bloc thinking.
I see. I see. And I guess, there's been a long history with Quebec nationalism, even in the past. So we'll see in the future if referendum comes through and Quebec can become its own nation officially.
Yeah, we already have two referendum. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully maybe we can get a third. So yeah. But looking to our next question. So what are some of your key priorities for the rest of the federal parliamentary term with the election coming up next year, for the people of Shefford? And what have been some of your most memorable experiences in Parliament of these last 5 years?
Yeah, Shepherd is a writing with rural issues such as agriculture. I also have a major city, Granby. So the issue of social housing, homelessness, immigration, and support for sports and cultural infrastructure. Not to mention help for small and medium-sized businesses are important to me. I have a big number of that kind of medium, small size business in my writing. And I also have mountains and lake to protect. So the environment and climate change also important file for me. And for my memorable moments, I think that having a parliamentary mission with the Parliamentary Union, with UN Women, with seniors group at the United Nations, not to mention having tabled a bill to increase old age security for retired seniors and seeing it evolve and move forward in the House is an interesting thing.
I think my next question to you is then, who would you say is your political role model or idol?
Pauline Marois as the first female prime minister in Quebec. So for me, it's a model. She was a mother as well as minister of various important ministries, status of woman, finance, education, health. So it's an important, this first female prime minister is a model for me.
I agree with that. Yeah. And what made you run in the 2019 Canadian federal election, and what made you join the Bloc Québécois?
Because I want to take my community issue further. I want to try to make a difference with a party that defend my values of defending Quebec interest, our values, our French language, because we're French in Quebec, and our culture, for example, secularism of the state and social democracy and the protection of all natural resources, that kind of, you know, that make part of our society in Quebec.
Finally, what's one piece of advice you give to students in 2024, especially those who are studying university or high school now in Canada?
I can say extracurricular activities are important. That's a big advice for me. Whatever it's the student for me, it's the student newspaper, student radio, theater, improvisation groups, also choir, or Amnesty
Wow.
International University group. It's so important for socializing, for discovering other passion, and in short, for mental health. And for me, this question of all this other discovery and for my mental health, it was so important.
So those are all our questions for you, MP Larouche. I thank you again for coming on the podcast and speaking to me and speaking to our audience about, your career before politics, your time in Parliament currently, and advice you'd give to students in 2024, especially those who are starting university and high school. So from the Donkey Vote podcast team and all our viewers, thank you again for coming on and sparing some time with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, MP.